It's been 412. Wine of the month for this month. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, you know that I recently took a trip to the Finger Lakes in New York and was really taken aback by the quality that's being produced up there. So I thought we'd highlight one of those that I found that is widely available in Pennsylvania and I think is a good indicative wine of what's going on up there in the region. So the wine that I chose was the 2017 Forge Cellars Classique Dry Riesling. This is available in the Pennsylvania state stores right now, $18.99 regularly. It's on sale right now for $16.99. Now let's talk a little bit about Riesling first. Riesling is a grape that originated in the Rhine River Valley of Germany. It's known to be a highly aromatic white wine grape, a lot of floral notes, very perfumed. And as it gets a little bit older, it takes on these kind of nutty aromas and a classic aroma of petrol. Kind of like a kerosene, petroleum, gasoline note that sounds weird, but it's very distinct in the wine world. And when you've had an older Riesling, you'll definitely know it. Very highly acidic grape. So, you know, even as you make a sweeter style Riesling, that acidity, that natural acidity, really helps to keep a nice balanced wine, even on the sweeter end of the spectrum. However, many people, and specifically in the Finger Lakes now, are making dry Rieslings. Alsace, France is probably the most world-renowned, but in the Finger Lakes as well, many examples of really good dry Riesling. And with that acidity, it tends to be a very age-worthy wine. It's a wine that will last several years. What else can I tell you about Riesling? Like Pinot Noir, it's highly expressive of terroir, so it kind of shows where it grows, right? So, you know, Riesling grown in different parts of the world with different soils and different climates, certainly going to taste vastly different. Let's talk a little about the Finger Lakes. So upstate New York, it's an up-and-coming AVA. There are, I think, 11 glacial lakes that are the Finger Lakes, but there's really 3 where the majority of wine growing is happening. Those are Keuka Lake, Seneca Lake, and Cayuga Lake. Those 3 are kind of where most of these grapes are grown. And what's unique about the lakes is they help to moderate the temperature. So they're not very wide, only a couple miles wide, but they're very long, 36 to 38 miles, I think, is Seneca and Cayuga. But most importantly, they're very deep, 400 to 600 feet deep. I think Seneca is the deepest with a little over 600 feet in depth. And that really helps to moderate the temperature. So a couple things happen. Number one is that water stays pretty warm. So as the air around it gets cold in the winter, and as the season starts up, the warming effect of the lake prevents some early season frost in some of these varietals. Secondly, in the summer, when it's really hot in upstate New York, the water acts as kind of a moderating thing the other way and keeps the temperatures relatively cool. We were up there, it was about 95 degrees, and it had to be a 5 to 10 degree difference as you got close to that lake. So a lot of the vineyards are planted on these hillsides that kind of slope down towards the lake, and you get this kind of cooling effect off the colder water in the summer and a warming effect from the still somewhat relatively warmer water than the air temperature in the winter and in the early part of the season. Now, winemaking here goes back, as we learned when we were there, back well into the 1800s, a point the region was really known for sparkling wine and for working with a lot of Native American or Vitis labrusca grapes like Catawba and Concord, Niagara. But also they started experimenting a lot in some hybrid grapes. And at Cornell University, there was a Geneva experiment station that really tried planting a lot of different hybrids of French Vitis vinifera vines with Vitis labrusca vines. And then really in the 70s with the likes of Herman Wiemer and Dr. Constantin Frank, they really believed that European varietals like Vitis vinifera could do well here. A lot of people thought it was too cold, but you know, these cooling effects, these temperature moderating effects on the lake really proved everyone wrong and showed that Vitis vinifera grapes could grow there. Now you'll still find tons of examples of sweet wine up there. You'll find lots of people making labrusca vines with Catawba and Niagara and Concord, but you're also going to find a lot of people really dedicated to vinifera vines and producing exceptional world-class Rieslings, Chardonnays, Pinot Blancs, Sauvignon Blancs. On the red side, Cabernet Franc is king up there, but also Zweigelt or Lemberger, an Austrian red varietal, even Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet and Merlot in some of the warmer spots and in warmer vintages, and Pinot Noir as another cool climate varietal that's doing really well. Now, Forge Cellars, I wanted to focus on them because it's kind of a unique story. It's a partnership with French winemaker Louis Barrault. And if you remember, I did a wine of the month on the Chateau Saint-Côme from Louis Barrault in Gigondas in the Southern Rhone. He is really just putting out, I think, 14th, 15th generation winemaker, putting out some of the best Grenache and Syrah based blends in the Southern Rhone Valley. But he's partnered with 2 guys here in in the Finger Lakes to produce Riesling and Pinot. That's what these guys focus on. The American partners are a guy named Rick Rainey, who's been in the wine industry and in the Finger Lakes for about 20 years. He's the GM and the vineyard manager, really knows his stuff up there. And then a guy named Justin Boyette, who is kind of the day-to-day operations guy when Louis is not there all the time, and also one of the winemakers. Justin Boyette actually is also a co-owner of Hector Wine Company on the east side of Seneca Lake, I believe. Really, really blown away by their wines. If you're in the Finger Lakes region, definitely pay Hector a visit as well. Now, the way these guys are making wine is really cool. So I think they're working with 15 or 16 different vineyards. They literally harvest and ferment them all separately. So you've got literally hundreds of combinations to play with in terms of site, in terms of cooperage, whether they're putting it in oak or in stainless. And each year they kind of take their top barrels and they blend together what they think is their best expression of Riesling. It's called Les Alliés. That's kind of their higher end bottling. And then they make this bottle, the Classique, every year. And this is really their flagship wine. This is their best expression of what that vintage in the Finger Lakes overall can show you from a Riesling perspective. They also make a Pinot Noir Classique. And then they do make some single vineyard bottlings of Riesling and Pinot Noir to really show some of that distinction and that distinctiveness of the sites around the Finger Lakes of those single vineyards. But this really is kind of their flagship bottling. And luckily, in 2017, they actually decided not to make the Les Alliés, and they just made the Classique. So what does that mean for us? It means we get like a $30 bottle of Riesling in about an $18 package. So, we reap the rewards. This is aged about half in neutral French oak and half in stainless. All of their wines are dry, so that means less than 4 grams of residual sugar. I think this one has 3 grams. 8 months in, like I said, 50% neutral French oak and 50% stainless. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. By the way, the stemware here, Gabriel glass, fantastic stems. If you're in the market, and they're a little expensive, but they are absolutely beautiful stems. The first thing I noticed on this, though, is the color is a little bit deeper and darker than most Rieslings I've seen. And I know you'll never see this in the video, but it's a little bit more amber, a little bit more what you'd expect from a Chardonnay, perhaps. Let's give it a smell here. So a little bit of that petrol note coming through, and it's not even an old Riesling, but definitely there. But a lot of candied lemon, apricot, peach, stone fruit for sure. A little bit of florals as well. Maybe some jasmine. I've been drinking some jasmine green tea at work, and it's got a little bit of that floral note. Some nuttiness and some minerality, some chalkiness there too. Really a lot going on in the nose. Really pretty nose. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, medium bodied, not as light as some other Rieslings in the market. It's got a little bit of weight to it. Apple, pear, definitely orchard fruit notes on the palate. A little bit of melon, a little bit more tropical fruit than you get on some other Rieslings. A little bit of citrus, a little bit of lemon lime, but I'm getting a little bit more of the tropical fruit notes here. But really good acidity and really good minerality, kind of that wet stone, kind of crushed rock, slaty finish here on a really, really long finish. So again, if you haven't had a Riesling and you haven't had a dry, and you don't think that Rieslings can be dry, this is a great one to try. If you haven't had a Finger Lakes wine, jump into Forge Cellars. $16.99 right now, you can't go wrong. It's gonna give you a really good example of what Finger Lakes is doing. It's gonna give you a really good example of what a dry Riesling can be. And hope you try it, you like it, and it forced you to try some more Finger Lakes wines. I was really impressed, and I hope you guys get a chance to try them and like them as much as I did. So here's to expanding your palate, drinking new regions, drinking new varietals. Cheers.